Good afternoon. It is Monday. I feel like saying Happy Indigenous Peoples Day is not necessarily the right thing. When I was thinking, when I was putting topic, I was going to say celebrating, but I feel like that's not the right word either, so I chose honoring. So that's going to be our topic today. So I want to say I'm honoring Indigenous Peoples Day. And just give us a few seconds for people to get in. Not sure if you can hear the music. It's Something Inside So Strong. Throwback from my freedom school days. Oh no, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. Beyond the walls of Jericho, our lives will come tumbling. Deny my place and time, you squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so bright, it will blind you. 'Cause there's something inside. All right. So that was Something Inside So Strong. I was first introduced to that when, I don't know how old I was when I started going to Freedom School. But shout out to Kansas City Freedom Schools. And it's by a South African artist. Why can I think of his name right now? I want to say Labi Free. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, and I apologize. But if you Google Something Inside So Strong, the song will definitely come up, and I feel like it's so apropos for today. And I wanted to end with the lyrics. Deny my place in time, you squander wealth that's mine. It is so spot on. I'm not sure if you saw the President of the United States and his continued shenanigans in wanting to glorify the actions of Christopher Columbus, and basically saying that he's getting a bad rap, which is foolish for a lot of reasons, and not just because people are saying, you know, well, in revisionist history that people are coming back in time and going back and judging him by modern standards. That's actually not accurate. Even by historical standards, during his time, he was lambasted for his actions. So, yeah, there's that. So I wanted to spend today talking. That's not what my original piece that I was going to talk about today, but I do feel the need to amplify Indigenous voices today, especially given those actions. So I am thankfully at a school that I'm off today, and off today because they do honor and call it Indigenous Peoples Day. The first year that I came here, we got off and they called it Columbus Day. And in my role as diversity coordinator, I actually put together an activity, and I challenged the kids to question whether we should be celebrating Columbus Day. I always feel like it is not my role to tell children what to think. It's not my role to tell anyone what to think, because when you tell people what to think, you stop having a free society. It is my role to present you with evidence, and it is my role to create critical thinkers, right? And so hopefully, if I have done my job correctly and I've given you the skills to think critically and the evidence is clear in front of you, you will come to a clear decision based on the evidence. But it's never my job to tell you what to think. And I will say that after I did that activity, the next year it was changed to Indigenous Peoples Day. I have no idea if that was, if those two things were related. No idea at all. Just that's what happened. So correlation, not causation. That's what I was looking for. So I want to talk about that activity a little bit in terms of these are the things that we can do as educators, right? Presenting our students with information, letting them make their own decisions once they have the information in front of them. One of the first places that I got introduced to understanding why this narrative of how we understand Indigenous history was wrong was actually Clark Atlanta University, my undergraduate school, which is a HBCU, a historically Black college university. Shout out to my English course. And she had us read this letter from Bartholomew de las Casas. And in it, he was describing how essentially that Indigenous people were not fit to be enslaved, and that instead the Catholic Church should go to Africa and instead grab the Africans and enslave them because their souls weren't worth saving, but instead they should focus for Indigenous people on kill the savage, save their souls, right? And it was the first time that I had seen this historical document, and I was like, oh my God, like what? And it just shifted so many things for me, and it opened up my mind and understanding the role that the Catholic Church played in carving up the New World and saying, here, Portugal, you get this, here, the Netherlands, you get this, here, you get this. And when we don't understand the historical role that all of these things, like none of this is coincidence, all of this, right? All of this was designed. This didn't just coincidentally, oh, boop, these things just magically happen. Like this was a system, and this was a network controlled on the highest order. And it was like religion was involved in it. And when you understand how entrenched these things were, you really begin to understand how insidious it was, right? Like, and when we start to tear down these monuments and these false heroes that people have created, you begin to do the healing that people really need, right? So like, first of all, the narrative that Columbus discovered that the world was round is so false. People at that time knew the world was round. There were globes. Everyone knew that. That was not a secret. No one wanted to fund his venture because they knew his venture didn't make sense because he had calculated the globe to be about 25% too small, and everyone knew his calculations were off. And everyone's like, yo, man, you crazy. We not gonna fund you because you not gonna make it, Braham. No. So no one knew that the Americas were in between, but everyone was like, you're not gonna make it from here to there because you're crazy. Not because it's flat, but because you're crazy. So that's why no one wanted to fund Columbus. And had not been the Americas been there, he wouldn't have made it. Let's be clear about that. They were running out of food. His crew was getting ready to mutiny against him. They were sick of him. He was not the greatest of leaders. And then even his actions, once he did make land, right? He wrote back, these people are children. They don't understand anything. He saw the gold that they were wearing, assumed that they had all this wealth, basically took people and began to torture them in efforts to force them to tell them where the gold was, right? And they're like, yo, son, we don't have reserves of gold. Like, we got a couple of little trinkets and things along those lines, but we don't have what you're talking about. And then essentially begin to slaughter people, demanding the gold. And even the Europeans at the time were so disgusted by his behavior. This man died basically in disgrace. Like nobody was messing with him. Like, so even in his time, his actions were out of line and out of character. And people were like, nah, we don't, ooh, Columbus? No, we don't fool with him. And so how he essentially comes back into favor is that, unfortunately, because, you know, America, why not? As whiteness is created in America, right? And the definition of whiteness continues to expand, because at first it's one group and then it becomes another group and another group and another group. At one particular point, Italians were not considered white, right? They were considered to be non-white, and they were considered to be the scourge, because why not? There was a group of Italians who found this book that this historian had wrote, which was essentially a fairy tale retelling of Columbus, of his voyage. And they clung onto it and was like, hey, look, y'all gonna stop disrespecting us Italians, because you know what? There'd be no America without us. Look. Columbus founded us. Like, and then that's how you get this myth and this legend of Columbus in America, even though Columbus himself never stepped foot in the actual United States of America. And so that's how you get the myth and the legend of Columbus here in the United States. And so when we understand that history, right, I don't fault the Italians for wanting to say like, hey, we have a stake in here. You wouldn't be here without us. Y'all gonna stop treating us like we don't belong here. We deserve to be here. I don't fault them for that, right? And it's just this complicated narrative. And it all goes back to just humans being messed up, right? That's not the word I really want to use. But our exclusion, right, and our mistreatment of each other is what this all goes back to. And I think that there are many other people that we should be highlighting on this day, and Columbus is not one of them. It was an accident, and there were people that were here. That's what it all boils down to. And he was a terrible person, like, even by those standards of those days. And so that's my spiel and background on that. And I want to spend the rest of my time now, now that I've given you that background short synopsis, is highlighting the voices of Indigenous people, because oftentimes we act as if they don't exist. Like, we talk about them in the historical sense, like, well, Indigenous people were here, they're not here anymore. They very much are alive. Their culture is alive. They're here. We as a nation have done some terrible, again, not the word that I want to use, terrible things to them. And we continue to do terrible things to them, and taking their land and not honoring our treaties and not doing the right thing. And it is messed up. Not the word I want to use again. But one of the things that we can do is learn the real history. And I want to highlight this book, An Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. They have the adult version, but I have the young people's reader. This is a great read, especially if you have younger kids, that highlights the history of Indigenous people in America, United States of America specifically. So this is a really great read that goes from the beginning up until now. And, you know, again, we often talk about them pre-European contact, and then we just kind of stop and be like, oh, yeah, you know, they kind of just disappeared, when they've been there all along, right? You know, and they've been crucial and critical to our history and to our success. You have the Code Talkers in World War II, who we would not have won the war without them. There's just a lot that the Indigenous people have given to us as a nation, and we owe a great debt to the people and to their tribes. And I really encourage you much into the same way of when it comes to Black History Month and like MLK Day, that we say it's a day on and not a day off, that we do the same thing with Indigenous Peoples Day, that it is a day on and not a day off. You have the museum in DC, that you take the time and really just educate yourself. And it is not my right to tell their story, because they are here and it is their story to tell. And we have to listen, because they're still here and they're still speaking and they're telling us what they want, and we need to be quiet. We need to shut up and listen. So to my Indigenous brothers and sisters, I just want to say I'm here and I'm listening, and I'm ready and willing, and however you need me to show up for you, I'm willing and able. And I honor you on this Indigenous Peoples Day. So that's it for today. Please use this day, like I said, to shut up and go do some work and listen. All right. I'll see you all next week.